Welcome back. All right, now, so we've gone into, this is the manifestation process itself. These are all the pieces that you need to have when you're doing a power thought, energizing a thought. So you need to be really clear about what it is that you want. You need to have some energy around it. So the third one is the power of belief. All right, so the power of belief comes into that attitude thing. If you think that things never work out, then you're only going to be looking for opportunities that never work out. If you have an attitude that things always work out, then it doesn't matter kind of what shows up. You're going to go, well, I didn't expect that, but that was really cool. That keeps life magical for you when you have that kind of an attitude. The power of belief is so primary to how you perceive the world. It depends on your level of consciousness. If you have a high level of consciousness on this, all you're ever going to see is opportunities and challenges. It's a challenge, but it's an opportunity. It might be challenging, but we're going to find a way through. You're always looking for a way through. You're always looking for the openings so that you don't miss them. Second level of consciousness people, they're still looking for it. Oh, that's how it works? Yeah. And once they get it, they go, okay, I'm looking for the opportunities. First level of consciousness people, they're still looking for their savior. No matter what. They're always looking for somebody else to do the work for them. And so how your beliefs are, how your attitudes are, how your level of consciousness is, let's see, attitude, level of consciousness, God concept. So what your God concept is. When I get over to another level over here, I'm going to be telling a story about if you have an external God concept, you're going to think that God gave you that opportunity, whether it's going to hurt other people or not. Now, maybe I'll tell that story now. Okay, so one day I decided I was going to play with my manifesting process, just to play with it, to see what happens. So I thought, I've got everything that's great in my life. I've got a great lover. I've got a great ex-husband. I've got great kids. I've got great house. Life is good. What do I want to play with? And I'm doing that little going through my inventory. I've got just a great life. Well, I wouldn't mind manifesting for $50,000. Yeah, that works. Okay, so I decided to use the process, and it's not a thinking it. See, this is, Shakti Gawain wrote that book, Creative Visualization, years ago, and it went to the bestsellers list and was on the bestsellers list for a long time. And then people started kind of wondering, well, what happened? It was because there's a difference between when you energize a thought and when you're thinking a thought. It's a very different thing. So when you're going in, I was going in to energize this thought, I want $50,000. And I let it go. And this is what happened. Because opportunities are going to show up. It's how the system works when you're working with it. Within a few days, I had an opportunity to get exactly on the dollar, $50,000 within 6 weeks. Illegally. Somebody said, doing what? It was one of those pyramid schemes. So you put $5,000 in, everybody puts $5,000 in, they all hand it to you. It was one of those pyramid schemes. But it was stated under the best kinds of circumstances. It's women helping women. You're helping another woman fulfill her dreams. It's women helping women. Now, if you have a God concept, an external God concept, and you have a first, now get this is important, and you have a first level of consciousness where you're always looking for a savior, and you manifest for something like this, and this pyramid scheme shows up, you're going to excuse it by saying, God gave it to me. I'm not going to hurt anybody else. See, this is you believe your delusions. It's delusional liars. I'm women helping women. This is true, and I believe it, and I'm going to believe it, and I'm not wrong. See, that's body consciousness stuff, because intellectual mind will never be made wrong. If you're at a higher level of consciousness, you're going to think it through, and it's not about me, it's about we. But see, really clever, delusional first-level consciousness people, they learn the language of third-level consciousness people. They learn the language of how can we sell it using the right language to confuse people so that it sounds right. And it's exactly why you need to have that good foundation at second level consciousness. You need to know good financial principles. You need to know if it's too good to be true, it is. Where am I getting scammed? You have to know these things. That's why you can't move to third level of consciousness until you're really solid in just foundational life living skills. So the power of belief, you can make anything true or false depending on your attitude, your God concept, and your level of consciousness. So just keep that in mind. This is also the place where you really get to see if you're putting in raisins, chocolate chips, or rabbit turds into your banana bread. Because, okay, here's a great exercise. Okay, just think about winning the lottery for a minute. Just think about it. Don't energize it or anything, but just think about it. And what are these little wafting thoughts that are floating through? Never gonna happen. Yeah, right. The statistics are, come on, what are they? 1 in a million. I don't need the money. You know, people even go there. When? Somebody has to, oh, she's got a good one. Somebody's got to win it. It just will be me. That's a good one. See, you want to know what these little wafting thoughts are, though. Now, these little wafting thoughts are so powerful. So I'm going to tell you the tornado story about how powerful those are. Because if you're putting something into, when you're trying to do a power thought and you're putting something in, and something sneaks in there, and it sneaks in fast, you don't even know sometimes that something's going to sneak in. You want to blow it out and let it go. You don't want to energize it. So I'm at Minnesota. We had our new little starter house. White aluminum siding. That was when aluminum siding had first come out. We were so excited. And we had this beautiful nature area behind us. And we saved and saved and saved to put our deck on. And that weekend we had just put the deck on. Just got built. So exciting. Storm goes through, and it's at the end of storms that the tornadoes get kicked up. And so we look out, and right there is a tornado right in the nature area just starting to drop down. And everybody knew it was bad. You know how the guys are always wanting to look at these things? They were going in the basement, so you knew it was bad. And I took one look at that thing, and I thought, you're not getting my deck. So had my husband take the baby, go downstairs, and I said, I'll be right with you. And in the middle of that living room, oh man, I planted my feet. When I went way deep inside of myself, and I popped my field out right around my house, going, house is protected. And then I got to thinking, well, I just about do the whole yard. Went out to the whole yard. And then there's this little wafting thought that floats through, and it was this. We had an option. You know, whenever you build a house, you have options. There was an option to put on a fake air vent across the garage, just as a trim piece. And we had said no, and the builder said yes. And so every time, just like the red light situation, my husband would be pulling into the driveway. Oh, I hate that thing. I hate that thing. And he was always complaining about that thing. Well, in my subconscious mind, I'm hearing about how he hates this. And so here I'm in the middle of doing this really powerful power thought here, people. And you're in the middle, you know, you'll be in the middle of stuff that's really serious here. And this little wafting thought goes, well, I wouldn't mind if that was gone. And then, I let it go. Went downstairs. For 45 minutes, I tell you, outside, it was just a terror. It just sounded terrible. And I was just playing with the baby and doing the thing. And you just have to not collapse the field. And I will talk to you about collapsing the field. And I just was holding the field. Pretty soon the storm is done. We go upstairs, and it is terrible. There were like 2.5 houses that were gone. There was not one house for blocks around in our whole development that was not damaged. Even the houses on both sides of us, although they were less damaged, they were only missing shingles. We weren't missing shingles, we weren't missing anything. So what do you suppose happened to that air vent on the front? Now, get this. This air vent was stuck in with 16 gauge nails. 4 of them. it was gone. This was into aluminum siding. Now, there were other houses where aluminum siding was missing. Half the houses were shredded with aluminum siding missing. Gone. We didn't even have any debris in our yard because I had popped the field out to the yard. It was down in the neighbors' yards along the edge. Now, how could it be that the only way this could have happened is if the pressure of the winds came in exactly the same on all sides, pulled it out, and with those 16 evenly, so it didn't even dimple our aluminum siding, pulled it out exactly far enough that it didn't get hooked on two sides going around the house. And we know it went around the house that way because we found pieces of it down that direction. And you know how aluminum siding's got the fascia piece on the corner, so it hides the ends. Didn't hook along that. How powerful are you with those wafting little thoughts? Those are really powerful. So when you're doing your recipe and you're trying to create something and you have a little wafting little, oh, I'm never going to have a happy relationship. The right guy's never going to show up for me. I'm never going to find that new job. When you start energizing those things, they go into the recipe, and then what your intellectual mind says is, oh, the process doesn't work. And actually, the process worked exactly how you created it. Exactly. Take the woman whose husband had an affair, or vice versa. I will never forgive him. I'm not going to energize that one. Otherwise, other ones I energize and I push it out into the group so you can feel it. This one I don't energize. I'll never forgive him. They go into counseling, and he says, I feel like there's this wall between us. She goes, yeah, I feel like there's that wall between us too. He goes to work. She never trusts him. She said, I'll never forgive him. Or she could have said also, I'll never trust him. How many times do you hear that? Never trust him. So the universe doesn't know anything else because in that moment of anger, she was just having that really pure, energized thought, energetic splatting, energized it. The universe doesn't know what else to give her. So every time he walks out the door, she's thinking, uh-oh, I can't trust him. I can't trust him. She goes into counseling. They spend all this time into counseling. I can't trust him. She doesn't realize that she has created the intention field that the universe doesn't know what else to give her. So who's breaking up the marriage? You know, they're sincerely and genuinely going back to counseling. They want to stay there. The kids are there. They want to stay there. They want to work it out. But there's this big wall that's between. It's when I started telling the stories, when people started saying, you know, Ellie, I know I kind of have these patterns in my life, and now I realize that I've actually really created an intention field. How do I break one of these intention fields? Okay, so hold that thought, and we will come back to it because you probably have things that you would just as soon not have in your energetic field, and you need to get rid of them. But that's all part of the power of belief here. So it really is your conscious and unconscious beliefs. So it's really important that when you're really looking to manifest something, that you talk it over with your friends. Remember I said don't have a lot of things on your list that you're manifesting for? I'm always lucky. That's a good one. It's a safe one to do. I can tell you that I have 3 primary ones, and then whatever's going on in my life, I might have 1 or 2 other ones. I have one around wealth. I have a magical career. I have one around relationships. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the relationship one because that one I was wanting a really good relationship. Now I've got a terrific ex-husband. And we just looked at our divorces, honoring each other's differences. Let's see. So around relationships, you want to be able to be very careful what you're asking for around relationships. I want a great partner. Now, if you ask for a great partner, like I was asking for a partner from my mom. The guy that she had been with had died, and my mother knows nothing about finances. She knows how to cook and love you more than anybody on the planet, but I tell you, she can't deal with finances for anything. And so I thought, oh, she needs a partner. So I kept manifesting for a partner for her. One day I go in, well, you know, come on, I get things. Where's mom's partner? And they said, well, she has one, your grandmother. It turns out that grandpa died 4 months after my mom's male partner had died. And they're best friends, and they have exactly the same hobbies, and grandma's like totally common sense about money and all of that. And it works beautifully. They've been living together for 15 years now. So it's just like been the best partnership. But you might also end up with a cat or a dog. So you have to be careful with what, I wasn't thinking I want to have a female partner or a partner for my grandma. I was saying I just want a partner for my mom because she just has no common sense about money, So you got to be kind of specific. So when I was looking and really ready for a new relationship, I thought, I forgot, sometimes I tell you my failures as well, because you have to know that you're going to have failures as well. Or opportunities show up and you go, oh, I wasn't thinking this one through. So you do want to think things through. And so I'd have great lovers, or I'd have great business partners, or I'd have great buddies. And it's like, I don't want a buddy. I want a husband-like relationship that's really there and committed. That's the kind of relationship I want. So I had to think about it, and I went, my Thursday night group where Homer had shown up, it was a manifesting research group, because I am very black and white about this. It's working or it's not working. If it's not working, what are you doing wrong? That's how it is for me. And so we were going to do it was coming up on springtime for our group, and we were looking to do vacations. And so the first person, she came back from this. Well, I'm not going to tell you what the vacation was, but I'll tell you how she held her thoughts. I said, Martha, how were you holding your thoughts on that? And she said, I wanted a memorable trip with my teenage son in Mexico. Yeah, it was one of those kind of vacations. Don't ever ask for a memorable trip. That was just bad. That's when you leave the kid at the gas station thinking he's sleeping in the back seat and you're 20, 50, 100 miles down the road. Okay, so the next person had this absolutely magical vacation. We just said, well, it took us 3 weeks to pull out of here. How were you holding your intention when you did this trip? Finally, 3 weeks later, she said, well, the first time we went out to Oregon or someplace out in the Northeast, we went out there, it was the most miserable vacation we'd ever had. We went out to go watch the whales, and it was pouring rain, and our flights were delayed, and everybody got sick, and then the kids gave us, and we were sick, and everybody was throwing up, and it was just miserable. So as the flight was leaving out of Phoenix, boom, you got to have passion. This is how she used her passion. I just want everything to go right. She used all that passion and that frustrated past memory. They went out to see the whales, and they saw baby whales and baby dolphins. They got upgraded airline ticket seats. I mean, they got free tickets for stuff. I mean, it was the most wonderful vacation they'd ever had. So you can use your negative emotion to empower something really positive to happen. Isn't that cool? Well, then it was my turn to go on a vacation. So they're looking at me. I have manifesting guru, on my forehead. So they're all looking at me. Well, how are you going to hold your intention when you're doing a 3,000-mile road trip with two teenage boys? Now, I have really terrific kids, for one thing. But I was really thinking about it. Okay, so how can I hold intention for this? And we talked about it, and I kept thinking, magical. There's nothing wrong at the magical kingdom, right? Even Mickey Mouse and Goofy and all those guys, they say goodbye to the kids and they go into a weed. They never turn their back on the children. Everything is magical there. Nothing goes wrong in the magical kingdom. Okay, people, can anybody think about a negative consequence to using the word magical? None of us could think of negative consequences. This is a good one for you guys for your vacation. Magical trip, yeah. Okay, so I said, okay, everybody, that's how I'm going to energize it when we do the group energization. So I want a magical vacation. And I could spend the next 2 hours telling you the magical things that happened on that trip, including 2 accidents that absolutely should have happened that did not happen, that we don't know how they didn't happen. Here's one of the fun parts about this trip, is that I went to my AAA person, map it out, what's the best way to go, and it was to go up through Colorado, across Nebraska. Now I went to graduate school in Nebraska, and I have this thing that I emotionally need to unhook from called cockroaches in my apartment building. And so every time I think of Nebraska, I can't stop thinking about cockroaches in the apartment building. It's just a neurotic thing I have. So every time I would think about going through that, I'd just get this sick feeling in my stomach. I just don't want to go through Nebraska. I don't like Nebraska. I know that's really prejudiced, but I'll get over it at some point. Yeah, I'm going to be born in Nebraska in my next lifetime, right? As a cockroach. I didn't energize that. I didn't. That was a totally non-energized thought. People don't put anything to that. Okay, so anyway, then I brought it to my circle, and one of the people said, "Why are you going that route? Why are you going through Nebraska?" Yeah, I had that feeling too, but I keep thinking it's the cockroach thing. And then when we're in the road, ready to go, and you have to go up through Albuquerque, and it's at Albuquerque that you decide you're going straight north or you're going east. That's your point. And I started getting sicker and sicker and sicker to my stomach the closer we got. And my son was driving, and I said, "Well, honey, we're heading east. I just do not feel good about going north." And both of my kids are very intuitive. Oh, good. I wasn't feeling good about that route. I don't know what it was. Well, by the time we got all the way up to Iowa, I was complaining at the gas station because Iowa's at that time was a 55 mile an hour state. And if you go 56, you get picked up. It's just so annoying because I have a lead foot. So I was at the gas station going, I cannot wait to get out of Iowa. And there were all these SUVs that were all around us. And the guy in the next filling area said, "Lady, we couldn't wait to get to Iowa." "Oh, why? What's going on?" We are a church group that were coming that were from Wisconsin. We had gone out to Colorado to go camping, and we're on our way back, and we're supposed to run. This was midnight, 11 o'clock at night, midnight. We're supposed to run the church service in the morning, and so we have to go home tonight. But what happened is that when we were coming from Colorado, got into Iowa, the Ogallala Bridge collapsed. So we got rerouted like 3 or 4 or 5 hours or something. All that traffic had to get rerouted. They finally got on the interstate heading east, and a toxic semi carrying some kind of toxic stuff flipped over or something so that you couldn't, if it was a grain truck, they shove it off to the side and the traffic keeps going. Well, because it was a toxic chemicals or something, they had to block everything off, reroute traffic again. So they were like 9 hours out or something absurd. And had we gone north and across Iowa, we would have been in all of that traffic. So, magical. Keep this word in mind for anything you want. And when I came back from this vacation, I said, okay, people, it was so good. Use this word. It has been tested. I want not only magical vacation, I want a magical life. So that's one of the ones that I'm always energizing. I want a magical life. Wow. So when I'm having a really bad hair day, get out of my way, and I have a lot of emotion that's churning up, I know that whatever's going on with this body or whatever's going on external to me is not reality. What's reality is what I energize on the inside. So I never energize the negative stuff on the outside ever. I'll come in, and if I'm having a sucky day, I'll go, I want a magical life. And for me, what it feels like is I'm just pushing out, I want a magical life, and it's always showing up. Because that's what creates the opportunities that are going to show up in your life. So now I'm doing a long roundabout to relationships. So when it finally came to relationships and I didn't want another cat, or something, I finally said, I want a marriage and I want it to be magical, and I know that that's the kind of relationship I want, and I know magical really works, so I want a magical marriage. And Gary showed up 6 weeks later. And we've been together ever since, and it's great. And he went to India with us last year, and it was great. So naming something is really important, and how you name it. So all the major things that I have, except for I'm always lucky, it always has magical in it. So I'm just telling you that because it's a good one to energize. And because I believe it, what happens is that once it starts happening over and over again, you get excited because it keeps happening over and over again. You keep energizing it, so it creates this whole cycle that just is self-fulfilling then. So whether it's positive or negative, it's self-fulfilling. All right. I teach in stories because you're not going to always remember this piece of paper. You're going to remember stories. That's why I teach with stories. Okay, so, all All right, the fourth one. The fourth one is really the hardest one I always have of explaining. And it's because all of these are really powerful. You gotta name what it is you want. You gotta have some power of passion with it. You gotta believe it. You know, all those little beliefs, conscious and unconscious, they boom, they come through. But when you get to the fourth one, this is all yang stuff, action stuff, busy stuff. When you get over here, it's like a breath. Remember, everything expands and contracts. Life breathes. The process also breathes. You're expanding out. This is what I want. You're breathing in. Whew. Remember, these are in no particular order. They all happen at one time. The fourth one is the power of surrender. Yes, it is let go and let God. Yes, it is having non-attachment to the outcome, or being okay with any outcome. Being okay with any outcome. I was in British Columbia teaching this on this big stage, and about that time this woman was coming right in front of me, and she was just so cute. She had this really cool hairdo, and she was one of those very dramatic kinds of people, and she goes, "I call that divine nonchalance." And it's perfect. This is where you're going to see where your neediness factor is. This is where you're going to see where your level of consciousness is. If you have first level of consciousness, I need that money. I need it. And when you're really needy, you're just totally out of the process. If you're needy in any kind of way at all, you are out of the process. If you're desperate, you're out of the process. If you're too emotional and desperate and needy, you are out of it. You have to remember that, because that is not passion. That's just pathetic. You're needy. It just doesn't work that way. You have to be able to. This is power. This is working with power. It's not working with emotionalism. Neediness is emotionalism. You're working with power. So when you're stepping into the power of surrender, this is taking the bow and arrow, saying, this is where I want to, this is what I want. Power of passion is pulling it back. The power of belief is saying, I'm going to hit that thing. And if you think you're not going to hit that thing, you can be 10 feet away from it and looking at it and pointing at it, and you're never going to hit it. If you believe that you're going to hit it, you can be on the other side of the world and you let that thing go, and you know it's going to hit. You don't know when it's going to hit, but it's going to hit. You know it. Here, the power of surrender, you're holding on to the bow and you're not letting go. I'm trying to control it. You're always trying to control. And so, pretty soon what happens? You get tired. Well, why isn't it working? You got to let it go. And so this thing that I'm doing, you got to let it go. And then you got to see what opportunities show up. I'm going to quickly tell you a story that usually takes me a little longer than what I'm going to make it today. But let's say that you have a child who's in the hospital, the fever has spiked. The doctor has come out and said, your child, you better call the family. We can't save the child and we can't get the fever down. So if you have somebody who's praying about this, I want my child, the prayer is, I want my child out of the hospital. Of course, they have enough passion, using all their life force energy. Now, depending on your God concept and your level of consciousness, it depends if you're praying to God or if you're working with power. It's two different things. The power of surrender here, and what I mean it when I say you have to be open to all outcomes, because in this particular situation, what that means is that I have to really trust life so much that whether this child lives or dies, I have to trust that it is the soul of that child, or there's a bigger purpose, or if the soul of that child lives, that I'm not in control here. And I have to be at peace with that. Now, sometimes you can't be at peace with it. It turns out this is, for some reason, this story, I started teaching from the very first circle I ever drew. I started teaching this story. And it turns out one of those first 50 women who walked into my office had that piece of paper in her purse when her daughter called her to say, Mom, come to the hospital now. My child is in the hospital. My husband's out of town. And they think she's going to die. And she pulled out that taped up piece of paper and said, honey, we got to pray differently. I can't. She goes, yes, you can. Ellie said so. So in other words, you make yourself, whether you want to or not, you make yourself do it. Because you're either plugged into the process or you're not. And this is a serious situation, because what happens is that you have all this life force energy that has oozed out of you. It's ready to go to work. You know, the opportunity can't even present itself if you've locked up all the energy in your emotionalism. You have to be able to let it go. The stories that you're going to hear on the 700 Club or in any religious organization or spiritual organization around the world is called the dark night of the soul. This is where the person has prayed so hard and they've begged and they've made all the deals that they can make. And there still hasn't been a difference. Because see, this isn't about begging and making deals. This is about power and how to work with power. But pretty soon, the person gets so exhausted that they have nothing else to give except to say, I let go. So that opportunity can even present itself. In this particular story, true story, what happened is in about 5-10 minutes, the doctor came out of the emergency room and said, you know, we could never get your grandchild's fever to come down, but just all of a sudden it just popped. And you can probably take her home later on tonight. Now you call it a miracle. I go, this isn't a miracle, man. You're working with the process. You're working with the process. I had a really good friend of mine whose daughter fell off a 20-foot cliff on a motorcycle. They call her today a miracle child. I go, she's not a miracle child. I worked 24 hours on this girl. Inner work. And her mother worked more hours on than that. And there were so many prayers coming in for this child. Man, I just grabbed that energy, boom, and used it. But you're not working on the physical body. What you're working on, now how am I going to tell this one? Okay, let's take that ocean one. So the ocean, the reflection on the ocean, this is what you see in your life experience. But there's all the stuff that's under the ocean. When you're working at the energetic level, you're working at the level of the water. Because it's the water, if you think about it, this is actually such a perfect example. Thank you. The water from underneath is what's pushing up the form of the water on the top. Right? So you can't work at the water at the top to suppress it, to deal with it. You have to work with what's underneath. We were working at the energetic level, underneath. And this child, within a couple of months, is back in college this semester. And the doctors just, they couldn't believe that this happened. They said, you know, when you don't go to the acupuncturist when you wipe out in a motorcycle. You know, you let the doctors do what it is that they need to do, but you do the inner work that you need to do, and together it's really a perfect marriage. So the power of surrender, when you're working with this process, I'm teaching you how to work with the water. To completely ignore what's on the top. What's on the top is going to be influenced. Actually, one of the people had a question here about karma and that kind of thing, and I'll get to that. But that's other people's influence underneath, their negative attitudes, their level of consciousness, their attitudes for what they've created in other lifetimes and intention fields they've brought into this lifetime that are affecting and interacting with your intention fields. So the power of surrender is the fourth one, and there's other things that kind of affect that. And I know we're getting tired, but I'm going to keep going here. So the fifth one is actually the first one. But I can't put it first because you wouldn't get it. The mind wouldn't get it. It's the power of presence. Now, what do you mean by that, Ellie? The power of presence. It means showing up. You got your bow and arrow. That's what you want. You've got the power to energize it. You believe you're going to hit it. You let it go. Okay, all of that is ready to go. But what happens if you just never show up with the bow and arrow? You don't do the work. I had an airline ticket I was trying to find. That was when it was always hard, airline tickets. You only put airline tickets in place A or B. I had dug out place A and B for 2 weeks and I couldn't find it. And this little voice kept saying, would you just do the process? No, I know where it's at. You know, you have to stop yourself. You have to stop. You have to be present. You have to pull yourself in to be fully present like a laser and focus on what you want. So finally, it was within 3 days of having to buy an airline ticket. I had no other choice. I was going to literally have to buy a new airline ticket. I was running the conference. It was a national conference. I'm going to find my airline ticket now. And I just let it go. Now, when you do this process, I had to be completely okay with buying another airline ticket. Absolutely okay with it. Within a few hours, I was up in my master bedroom closet, and all of a sudden I saw this shirt that I never wear. I never wear that. I never wear that. My husband never wears that. And I'm going, I don't have time for this today. What am I doing in here? And I just kept doing this. Pretty soon I have this pile of clothes, and I'm having this soul consciousness conversation with my body consciousness about, leave those clothes alone, would you? We don't have time to do this today. And soul consciousness is keep doing this, keep doing this. Pretty soon I stopped myself enough to go, I don't have time to do this. And as I'm saying that, and I'm looking down, and there's this paper bag. And you know that thing you do when you're going to get company? See, I'm not the only one that does that. That stack of things that's just going to go into the file, and there's never any rush for it. Well, it was a company bag, you know, and it just hadn't gotten filed. And of course, I knew as soon as I was dumping it out that I was going to find my airline ticket in it. But I could tell you hundreds of stories. I mean, I'm moving. I've moved offices in the last 3 months twice for all my business stuff. Do you think I can find anything? Even when I'm really organized, and I can't. I couldn't find my computer bag. I need to find my computer bag. And then, of course, I've looked in this place 10 times, and now it shows up. You know, sometimes things are right in front of you and you can't see it. My dad was going to give us some collector's guns for my kids, and he couldn't find one. He found one of them, and my dad, oh man, he's a pack rat like none other. Dad needs to find that gun. Where is it? And within 5 minutes, you know, check that drawer down there. Open it up, and there it is. So you have to be able to just work with the process and totally let it go. Like you find it, you don't find it, it doesn't make any difference. But it works. But it's the power of presence. When I was, where's my pen? When Bill was asking me, Ellie, how do you make things happen? One of the first things I tried to explain to him is this power of presence, because I said, well, it feels like I'm getting all squished together. And I asked the spirits, you know, give me an image so I understand what this is about. And the image that I got was a picture of a body that was cut every 5 inches horizontally. And then every body part was facing a different direction into the past or into the future, and some level of past and future. That ankle is when I fell off the cliff, and you know, when I was a kid, and I jumped thinking I was going to ride a horse and capture it. You know, all these things that you've gone through your life, even the eyes into the past and into the future. And there's, you know, hearts. Hearts are like into 10 different directions, you know, with relationships and emotion and all of that. All different directions. And when you're doing this, nothing else exists. It's just like when you're doing dowsing. Nothing else exists. So what it feels like, when I was first explaining it, it feels like everything is starting to line up. Boom, 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 boom. I'm here. I have just arrived. Then you do it. So remember when I was doing the tornado story, what was the thing that I did? You plant your feet. You root in. The God concept was the central channel. It's one of the 8 extra meridians, one of the psychic channels. It's not talked about a lot. I'm going to be talking about the psychic channels tomorrow that are not talked about a lot. You have to be able to pull into that central channel. So as you're sitting there, feel yourself pull back in. Pull yourself away from me. Pull yourself right into your center so you can feel as if you're pulling way deep into your center, into that quiet, peaceful place. Boom. You have to be able to focus like a laser. And let it go. And then get on with your life. No, you don't do things over and over and over and over and over again. You do it and leave it alone. Okay? You might energize different aspects of it. I wanted a Subaru. This is a funny story. Okay, so I wanted a Subaru. My husband wanted a truck. We had 2 kids, 2 dogs, the kids' friends, and all the ski equipment and stuff. We need a Subaru to fit everybody in. I want a truck. We need a Subaru. I want my Subaru. Not Subaru. Suburban. Suburban. Big thing. Sorry. The Suburban. Well, you know, they're really expensive. And my husband wanted a truck. The truck is not going to work, but he wants a truck. Biggest intention field wins. If you don't forget anything else today, remember that. My next door neighbor was a Chevy dealer. Oh, let's go down to the Chevy dealer. Kim finally went into the Chevy dealer, and as he's going into the Chevy dealer, I'm going, he needs about 3 or 4 months to figure it out financially how it's going to work. We're going to collapse time to now. So in my mind, I'm seeing 3 or 4 months of his processing. He's an engineer. You know, they got to know all the details. Boom, 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 boom. Boom. Got it figured out. What else was it? There were 3 or 4 things when I was standing in that parking lot leaning against my Suburban that I just manifested for right in that moment. And let it go. A little while later, he comes out. You know, Mark's going to give us a really good deal on that Suburban. And I'm just kind of going, yes. And we got the Suburban, and I got it in the divorce. All right, things that influence you besides God concept, attitude, level of consciousness, things you bring in with past lives. They really affect you, and had I not been doing readings on people, I wouldn't know how much it affects people. I was working on a woman who I kept feeling like I was getting seasick. And I said, I don't know where I'm going. I'm just going back because she had an issue. And I said, I want to go see where the origin of this comes from. And I just kept feeling like I was on this ocean. I said, you know, I'm going to like throw up here pretty soon. And I just kept going. And it just was back and back and back. And pretty soon I find myself on this old-fashioned ship. And there was a terrible storm. And she was a little kid, and she had a little brother. And the waves were starting to wash over the ship, and they thought they were going to lose the kids. And so they took her and they tied her to something. And in the moment she had just gotten tied to it, a really big unexpected wave came and washed off her parents and her little brother, or her big brother. Now, she would have been better at a soul level and even at a body consciousness level to have gotten killed with her family, because then she wouldn't have gotten emotional damage from that. But take the manifestation process. Remember I said most manifesting happens under pain and when you're angry. She had this thought, who's ever going to watch over me? I'm never going to be safe again. I'm never going to have a family. You know, there were those kinds of thoughts that went through her in that moment. And then the ship crashed and then she died. But it wasn't before she made those postulates, those energized thoughts. And so she had lifetimes that she's had relationship issues, and the person she's with right now is actually perfect for those particular issues. And I said, I know there has to be a process. We're out of time right now, but there has to be a process in order to clear that karma that you are asking about, or to clear. Karma is really your own manifested thoughts, just like the woman who couldn't get over the relationship thing and destroyed her relationship because she created an intention field without knowing she did. You create your own intention fields, and you're living the life of your own self-created intention field. I was out of time with this woman. At that time, I was recording my readings with a digital recorder. I needed to say, I need to plug it into my computer. My hand reaches over to flip up my laptop computer, and the sacred forgiveness ceremony starts playing on its own. That was so freaky. And we were just crying, going, oh my God. I knew people were having physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing that I get reported to even 7 months out, that it's one of the most special events that and ceremonies people have ever done. And I knew as I was seeing people go through the ceremony and I see all this life force energy that gets released as they're doing forgiveness for themselves, asking others to forgive them and forgiving others, the 3 forgivenesses, that bound up life force energy is being freed. And if you want to release yourself from karma, you do the forgiveness ceremony. I had a couple who was having relationship issues, and they love each other very much, but it was just they couldn't get past this. And they said, let's just take Ellie's forgiveness ceremony and let's just do it. And this is before I had the DVD done or anything. They just knew what the 3 forgivenesses were, and they'd been through it with me before. They went down to their healing room. They did a little ceremony. They set up a little altar. They did it. And they don't remember any memories or anything going through the ceremony. They don't remember any reasons that they needed to ask for forgiveness or be forgiven or get forgiveness. Nothing on a conscious level. But when they were done with the ceremony, they said, we don't know what happened. It's just free. We're free. And then they've just gotten on with their lives. So it works at very unconscious levels. I believe that this is the most important work that I can teach, is this manifestation process. Because how can you do conscious manifesting if you're so busy unconsciously manifesting and creating intention fields? So often when I'm teaching this, I see little light bulbs going, oh, I know those times that I was doing it. Now I know why I did it and why everything came together. But now I also know why it didn't come together. So the name of this talk was The Missing Pieces, right? So a lot of this stuff you knew. Most of it you probably knew, but you may not have ever had it kind of put together into this form. So your mind gets it, and you go, yeah, I can do that. All right, so let's manifest before I say goodbye. Anybody want to energize having a magical life? Well, stand up. Really plant your feet in. Lift up that perineum. You know, it's a really strong energy center there. Whoa, grit your feet to the ground and yell, I want a magical life. I want a magical life now. Anybody want to do, I'm always lucky? Go. I am always lucky. Oh, good. I love doing this with dowsers because you guys just know how to put it out there. Have a magical day and blessings to you.